Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, we're gonna continue with the Skellingrim campaign. We're almost to the end of that. In other news, Maker did drop me, as they said that they would. I'm no longer with Maker, so all my videos have to be re-monetized by hand. I can do it one page at a time. It's incredibly tedious and time-consuming, but this is the system, I guess. I don't know why. They encourage you to post every day, if you can, and then don't have tools to like mass edit hundreds of videos. So YouTube, this is just, we do what we like. They're like Apple Jacks, we do what we like. Or the Apple Jacks commercials. I don't know if those still go on. I don't see those, I don't watch TV anymore. Also, I have ad blocker, so I never see like any ads for anything. I never know what's going on unless people tell me about it. Like, I didn't know Moana was gonna be a thing until like I started seeing people talking about it on 4chan or whatever. So, yes, cut off from the world. Anyway, though, Skellingrim. So, the group had just exited the Deep Fjord mines, rescued by the undead, because they asked for help from the undead. And the group was trying to figure out, like, how exactly they want to go about this whole situation, because they've been encouraged by the undead to go and stir up trouble. And so, they do a sending to the White Wizard, Silver Eye, and they explain that, oh, you know, we got out of the mines of Deep Fjord, you know, everything's cool, like, what now? And Silver Eye's like, well, the undead have attacked Lavender Magnificence, which was, like, located just south of the city of Pretentia, which is where the elves, the capital of the elves was Pretentia. You know, this is, of course, elven language, doesn't mean what you think it means. But anyway, though, the elves, they were all posh and whatnot. And the way that it worked was that the city of Pretentia, their magic, like the elves were very old and they knew more magic. Like if you look in D&D, I believe that elves get cantrips and like certain like low-level magical spells just off the bat as an innate ability. And in the setting, like we didn't have wizards and things like that, so people weren't like, it wasn't widespread for people to be learning magic. But the elves, because they were old, they knew more magic innately, they were able to teach more magic between one another and whatnot, and they used these magical skills to cultivate, to shape like mountainous terrain into arable farmland, and then they used their magic to grow the crops faster and whatnot, so they were basically like the breadbasket of the world. They were located conveniently on a river, which went directly to the town of Middleton, the city of Middleton, rather, which was then a major trading hub, and so on and so forth. So it was a great place to grow a lot of food for armies. So what the undead had done is they'd taken the city just south of Pretentia, which was sort of a roadway on into the Dwarven lands. It wasn't the only way out, but it was like the most convenient road to get out of Pretentia. And so the undead were just sitting on Lavender Magnificence and presumably killing everyone, butchering everyone, and turning them all into undead, because that was their typical MO. And the party goes, oh, okay, well that's not good. So, alright, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and lap around Lavender Magnificence. We're not going to take the Magnificence. We're not going to take the main road. We're going to go around and then go up to Pretentia, and we're going to explain to them the situation that we're in. So they do this, and it's kind of a long journey, because they have to go around a mountain. You know, it takes them a good while, and by the time they get around, like, Guff has started to... He's mostly skeleton at this point. Like, his flesh has started to rot off, and, you know, like, he's sort of, like, whatever, for the sake of hygiene and beauty, I guess, whatever doesn't stay rotting, like, he can gradually pick off, and it's not, like, painful in any way. It's, like, very gross, very unpleasant, but everyone kind of, like, just sort of, they deal with it, and they disguise him. Like, they put him in a bunch of, like, robes and things like that, and they give him, like, a false beard or whatever. I can't remember what they did. But they disguised him so that he could get around and not be spotted as an undead, a scout, or something like that, traveling with a bunch of living people. And if he'd actually gone over with Josiah, there was, like, if they'd gone to go help the undead, they could have preserved their bodies, because there was, like, a whole branch of the undead magic that focused on that sort of thing so that they could plant spies in various places. So there were spies in the cities of the living, and really not very much intelligence on the dead societies at all, the dead civilizations at all. The dead had their own internal politics, and their internal politics were actually more difficult at that time, which was their major disadvantage. But as far as knowing what their enemies were doing and where to strike when they're weakest, the undead had that going for them. So, yes, so the group decided to go up and go to Pretentia, And the first thing they do is they approach the gate, and Jay actually made a comic about this. If you follow the Jay cartoons, Jay made a comic about this where they just walk up to the gate, and the gate guard's like, "Hello, what's your business in Pretentia?" And they go, "We're spies. Yes, we are spies." and they just like pretty much. They give this weird, like, contradictory thing. They're like, yeah, we're spies. We were sent up here by the undead, so you should ignore the message that I'm going to give you because it's probably bad advice. And the guards are just like they're trying to have it both ways, where they want to betray Skellingrim, they want to betray Burgundy, but they also want to work with the living. So they're like, yeah, no, we're totally spies, and we're here to deliver a message on behalf of the undead, but you shouldn't believe what they're saying, because actually we're double-crossing them, and the message that we deliver is this is not a double bluff. It's not a double bluff. Don't arrest us. Don't arrest us. Don't arrest us. And so they got arrested. And I remember, like, some members of the party, and I can't recall who specifically, but there were a couple of players who were just like, how did this happen? Why did they arrest us? And and like other members of the party were like, we essentially walked up to the front gates. We pulled over a cop and we said, "Hello, I am a..." Or it was the customs agent. Like it was like, "What's your business here in the city?" And like normally be like, "Oh, I'm just here on travel," or "I'm here on business," or whatever. No, it was like, "Oh yes, I'm a spy for a nation that you're at active war with." Like, yeah, I'm with the enemy. And it's like, how are you not going to be detained? So they wound up being questioned. They had an interrogator come in, and he asked them questions, and they explained the story of what had happened. They were like, yes, and we were told to do this, and we were told to do that. And essentially, they really didn't have very much, like, credit to go on as far as, like, why would we believe you? Why would we be cooperative with you? So one thing that was funny though was that elves have a system, and if you're not part of their society, you don't really get very good treatment. But if you are part of their society, then you're given all these opportunities to reform. You're put into a prison that'll like teach you things and stuff like that. They have a much better system for actual elves. Everyone else just gets screwed. But Lyman, the halfling, had a bunch of documents magically given to him by Cerveri, the god of mercantile, that demonstrated that he was a citizen anywhere he went. So he was like, "Oh, excuse me, I'm actually a citizen of Pretentia, of your proud nation." And so they go over the paperwork, and it was all completely legit. And so the elves were just like confused as to how exactly a halfling achieved citizenship. That was like strange. They'd never seen that before. In fact, they barely ever seen halflings in the first place. In that particular setting, halflings were usually used as slaves and things like that. It was very common for them to get trapped into contracts and things like that, which they then couldn't pay off, and they would be forfeited into slavery, essentially. And the elves had a similar relationship like that, but with the gnomes. And it wasn't exactly like a slavey kind of situation. In either case, it was always kind of more of a sort of businessy kind of thing. Sometimes it would be like debt slavery, contractual slavery. This sort of thing was sort of common with them, because the gnomes were like tinkerers and builders and stuff like that. So the gnomes were responsible for a lot of the higher technology that the elves were operating on. They had like water power and stuff like that. And certain magical devices were being built by the gnomes and then given to the elves for a fee. So the gnomes had a little bit more, like they weren't citizens, but they were like part of the elven society. They were an important part of elven society. They were allowed to hold homes, but generally only places in like, the lower districts of Pretentia and so on and so forth. There was a bunch of politics involved with gnomes and halflings, but in any case, though, a halfling having like citizenship was really weird. And the elves were all a little bit appalled by it, but they couldn't deny that the paperwork totally checked out. So they took Lyman away to another prison where he was to be processed more humanely than everyone else. And everyone else was kind of like just thrown in like a cell and given like, gruel and water and so on. And so they said to themselves, they're like, well, we're arrested again. That's great. Like, what do we do? Now what do we do? And I can't recall how exactly they came to this conclusion, but I think what happened was that Ader came back, and the joke was just like, well, what can Ader do? And the person who was running the place, essentially the king, he was a brown wizard, or something like that, or a bronze wizard. I can't remember what specific color I said that he was. I think it was bronze, but anyway, though, he was a wizard, and Ader's last name was Flato. And at that point, I was inspired to do something rather funny. All this time, like, the party had been like, oh yeah, Ader's terrible, like, he's causing all kind of damage, we need to get him away from the party. But Ader was actually like an elf. He was a high elf, and his last name was Flato. So I was like, oh yes. They were like, who's the leader? Like, we want to talk to him. And I was like, Sable Flato. And the party was like, Sable who? What now? It was like Sable Flato. And so it turned out that Ader, this guy who they'd been trying to evade and get rid of for the longest time, was actually like the illegitimate son of the king of the elves. And like, the reason why he really wasn't he wasn't well respected because he was like, you know, he was born out of wedlock. He was, you know, there's like all kinds of, there's a little bit of scandal, but he was still the son of the king of the elves. So Ader actually shows up. Like, I just had this thing, because the rule for Ader was that he could just join the party again if it was funny. And so I thought it was particularly funny that Ader would just be the, you know, like the prince of the elves. Just like, oh hey guys, yeah, I know I'm the prince. Like, I know I don't act like a prince, but that's because it's dumb, and I don't want to act like a prince. So yeah, so Ader just shows up and he's like, hey guys, and they're like, Ader, can you get us out of here? And then he's like, yeah, I don't know. And he just like turns to the guard and he's like, go outside. And the guard's like, I don't think I can do that, sir. And then he's like, no, just go outside. And I think he just like gave him a whole bunch of money. And then just like, go outside now. And the guard's like, okay. And so he just goes outside, and then like Ader, he doesn't like get them a key or anything like that. He's like, I made the guard go outside. You can escape now. And the party is just like, what do you mean we can escape now? And they're like, yeah, well, I mean, there's no guards watching, so you can escape. Like, however you want to escape, you can do it. And I was like, get the key, Ader. And he's like, no, I don't want to like be assisting a jailbreak. I just sent the guard outside, so if you guys are gonna do something illegal, it's totally on you. And so they're like, well, okay. So they just like, using their strength and their incredible, like, cause they're like level 6 or 7 at this point, something like that. They were like high level characters. They just like managed to break the doors down, and then like just run out of the place. And so the guard turned, he's just like, they run out the front door, and the guard just like, oh, okay, like this is happening. And then there was like a bunch of them, and only like one of him, and it was just like, I don't know. I'll like, I think Ader was like, go somewhere else. He's like, go away. And the guy's like, he's like, how far away? And he's like, I don't know, just away. And so he like walks down the street a little ways, and he just like standing over there watching. And then Ader's like, no, further. And so the elf like walks further away, and he's still like within seeing distance. And Ader's like, no, further. So he just like turns the corner and he goes. So yes, I think that Ader promised that he wouldn't get in trouble. He's like, oh, I'll put in a good word with my dad. But Ader didn't do that. So that guy probably got in trouble. But, yeah, so anyway, so the party managed to escape, but now there was the problem of, like, Lyman was off by himself in another, like, nicer prison, and they didn't know how to get him out, so they, like, went, and the trouble was that they were negotiating, like, a court, like, they were actually going to have a court hearing for Lyman, because he got due process, while everybody else was just, like, apprehended, you know, permanently. So they went through all the trouble. They actually go to this other prison, and they like climb the walls, and they like try to break in, and they're like, come on, Lyman, you gotta go. And Lyman's like, oh, hang on guys, I got a trial or something like that. I can't remember. Again, I don't remember what exactly the justification was, but they couldn't persuade Lyman to just up and leave. I think he wanted to try to clear his name, because he was hoping that if he got to go to court, he could at least like be like, no, listen, like we're trying to betray the undead for real. I think he was trying to get the message out. He was trying to be faithful to some semblance of the idea. And so the party was like, well, okay, good luck. You know, if you get out, we're going to be here. We're going to meet at this place. We're going to do this. And so Lyman was like, okay, yeah, all right, good luck, guys. I'll see you later. So what wound up happening was that Lyman was able to get a hold of Count Kalaris, who showed up to be his judge. And Count Kalaris, he gets up there and he makes this like just god awful presentation. He's like, yep, I'm pretty sure. I'm awfully sure that, you know, my friend here is guilty of all crimes and and he just basically completely fell through on the defense. And then he's like, I rest my case. And he sits down, and Lyman's like, great, thanks there, Count Kalaris. You really did me a solid. And so the next guy gets up, and then Count Kalaris just casts like charm person, charm group, or whatever. It's like a spell that manipulates people so they have to do what you say. You know, it wears off after 48 hours or something like that. But he was like, as a high level wizard, so he just charmed the whole courtroom to all agree that Lyman should be excused for his crimes. It was like, yes, he committed the crimes, but he did so with the best of intentions, all in favor of acquitting. And it was just sort of like, oh, yep, all the elves are in favor of acquitting. So that was kind of the thing, is it was like, yes, no, I'm a terrible lawyer, but I'm a fantastic wizard. So, freedom for Lyman. That was achieved. And away they went. So Lyman ran off, and he rejoined with the rest of the group. Guff, during all of this, had separated from the group because he didn't want to walk up to them as a skeleton and get them in even more trouble. Although it wound up being pointless. Like the idea was that Guff was going to separate because they didn't want to like walk up and just have customs be like, sir, can I check your can I look under your robes, and just be like, oh, there's no penis here. This is evil. So yeah, he was kind of like laughing. He's like, well. Like, I may as well have just shown up as a skeleton if you guys were going to tell him you were with the undead in the first place. So he was just, like, hanging around by himself, and he was, like, talking about, like, I don't know, I've got to come up with a plan in case the party never comes back, I guess. Like, maybe Guff will just, like, retire into the woods and take up wood carving forever. So he actually runs into, while he's hanging out, actually down south of Lavender Magnificence is what he decided to do. He's just like carving wood and like honing his skills in carving wood, and he has one of Rummel's familiars with him so that the party can communicate with him from long distance, because the Pact of the Chain warlock can do that. So he's just sitting around, and he's just like talking to Peyton, and like he's like, Peyton, what do you think I should do? And then Peyton's just like, I don't know, like evil things, like petty evils. This is what I like to do. And he's like, no, I don't think petty evils is a good idea. And she's like, well, I don't know, get naked. Like, and he's just like, I'm a skeleton. She's like, I just get naked. Like, it's the principle of the thing. They tell you not to. And so, he's, it was just like, that was his only companion, was this little imp. So he's hanging around, and a bunch of, like, some scouting skeletons came out, and they found him out there, like, wood carving. And like, the thing about being the undead, the nice thing about being the undead, is that if you run into another dead guy, you know that you're at least both undead, and maybe you're not on the same, like, political faction, but you're still, like, part of the same nation. So they just come out and they're like, hey, what are you doing out here? Because he was, he wasn't an elf, like, clearly. He wasn't an undead elf. He was, like, a human. And so that meant that he probably wasn't, like, an escapee from Lavender Magnificence, because that was mainly an elven town. He would have been, like, an elf or a gnome had he escaped from there. So they're just like, hey, what are you doing out here? And I can't remember, but Guff the conversation went in such a way that the skeletons thought that he was another scout or something like that. So they kind of talked with him, and they sort of swapped a little bit of information, and they were like, yeah, don't go any further south. Like, the wood elves live out in those woods over there, and they're just bastards. Like, they're just waiting for somebody to step into their territory. Don't want to mess with that. And, doing this and doing that. And they're like, yeah, I hear the campaign at Buttermine's going really well. It was very swift. And Jay's like, oh, Guff's like, oh, the Buttermine? Buttermine is under attack? And they're like, yeah, Buttermine. Buttermine was like this dwarven mine that was located close to Lavender Magnificence. It was actually another trade route that the dwarves used to get stuff from Pretentia to the rest of their cities. So they'd taken Buttermine, and as it turned out, that this had really upset Silvereye, who was then intent on retaking Buttermine. He wasn't going to retake Lavender Magnificence. So anyway, Lyman, having been acquitted of his crimes, gets an opportunity to talk to Sable Flato about the whole situation in Pretentia and Lavender Magnificence, and Sable, since they're essentially in the mountains, since they have all this food in the mountains, and the position is incredibly defensible, his take on things is that he's going to sit up here and wait in defense until either the humans or the dwarves mobilize to retake Lavender Magnificence. And then once they retake that city, he'll move. That's his plan. That's what he wants to do. And I believe that the original plan, what the Undead were trying to do, is they were trying to lure his armies out. And so him staying put was actually the best idea, because they were trying to ambush him. They were trying to bait him into attacking, but he didn't want to move, so... since they could just magically grow food, like a siege was not really going to work for the undead or for the elves. I mean, like, the elves are as good as immortal, and the undead, they'd come, but they weren't, like, in their full force, so they were just sitting on, like, a single city and taking a second one. And as it turned out, Silvereye wasn't going to come to reinforce or take Lavender Magnificence. He was going for Buttermine. So this justified in Sable's head why he should just stay put and be where he was. And so they kind of went back and forth, and they talked about this politics. And I believe, as Lyman interpreted it, what he wanted to do was he felt that Silvereye was more receptive than Sable. I mean, after all, he just been arrested in Sable's country. So, you know, they probably weren't on really good terms, but he'd done some chores for Silvereye, so they could probably appeal to Silvereye better. So he gives up on Sable, and he's like, yeah, well, okay, all right, I'll go talk to Silvereye and see if I can get him directed over here. So that became kind of the next plan. They departed, and Lyman met up with the group, and he explained to them, like, all right, so this is the political situation. If we can get Silvereye to direct his army to take Lavender Magnificence instead of Buttermine, then we can get Sable to move, and then they can begin a counterattack. And that's, you know, a good, formal, like, well-fed counterattack. And that's what we really need right now. So yes, that became the plan. The group all gathered up with the intent to contact Sableye. And with that, I suppose that we'll wrap this up. Yeah, like I said, we're almost done. We probably got maybe like 1-2 more episodes of this, and we'll be at the end of the campaign as far as it was played. But anyway, though, thanks for watching, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.